Welcome. This is Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau. And just to let you know, this is the show that will take you a moment to wrap your heads around new thought, new thinking, new ideologies than the way you've been taught to think and to believe about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. As a professional psychic, I have been this way since childhood. Now, it's important that you get the purpose of a true psychic reading. It's been poo-pooed by religious groups or people of the nature, and I want people to understand the exact importance of what we do as a professional. It's quite different from a storefront gypsy. Now, as a child, I was very psychic at a very early age, and I knew that God would not give a child this kind of a gift if it wasn't for the good of others. I also came knowing that I had a responsibility to learn it only from the right sources, never the wrong. I also have a belief that it's not good enough just to be psychic. You see, we're all psychic as humans in varying degrees based on our evolutionary process from past life and this one. So I think it's important to continue that knowledge and that study to continue to be guided only from those right sources. Now, on top of that, I'm a hard and fast skeptic, always have been. And I think that's a good thing because there's a lot of garbage out there. But it's important when learning it from the right sources, I ask the universe to give me proof and validity. Now in my own life, I've done over 50,000 readings for clients all over the world. Doctors, lawyers, celebrities, and from all walks of life. But I stopped counting in 2002. It's not important, but it's the information that comes across in a reading that's essential for the person. So what ends up happening is, in the process of a true reading, every psychic uses a different modality based on their evolutionary process. So, out there are beginner psychics, intermediate, and advanced. And so you never just want to go into something like this without having an urge, and in the highest way, that you want to have positive input or positive information offered regarding your life, be it work or career, and then you have to always remember you have free will to apply the information or not. For myself, I am psychic, clairvoyant, clairaudient. That, of course, means that I see and I hear. I only use tarot, astrology, numerology, palmistry, graphology, solely as a third point of reference only because of that high skepticism. But because I kept demanding proof years ago, literally, I kept demanding so often that I wanted the universe to prove it. These are our lives, so that validity is important for me. And it began to happen. On top of all of this, I literally see and I hear your own guide, your own guardian angel. Now, at first, that was a little scary. But what I've realized through these 35 years of doing this is they know you much better than I. So I pay good, humble, rapt attention. They will literally, in a reading, put me in your body. I'll see it through your eyes. I'll feel it physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. The guide will pull me out. I will then also see it and feel it in the objective viewpoint. And then they're talking and telling me things at the same time for your own benefit to improve the quality of your life to the highest degree. And this is essential. It always must come from that highest source. So you've heard me say God and the universe several times. And there's two ends of spirituality. The highest end is where we're dealing always with a connection to the divine. God created, how can I say it? God created all of us throughout the cosmos. However, man invented 35,000 religions. That's a problem. God did not. So we always have to have that personal connection to the divine on our own basis. There's the low end of spirituality, and that is dealing with all the sordid sides. And I would never deal in that way. And you should never deal as well when you're going for your reading. But the point of all this knowledge is to push it through literally from the divine cosmos for the benefit of the evolution of all mankind, to get rid of and dispel those myths and conjectures that we form. You see, we have 6 senses, not 5, the way we're taught. And the whole purpose of my work is to dispense this information from the cosmos, God Creator, for the benefit of all mankind, because it affects us spiritually, physically, and mentally in every single area of our life. So the purpose of the show is to give that intention so you have free will choice to achieve your greatest successes in every area of your life. So we have several segments to the show, deciding literally, how can I say it, what comes across naturally, organically for the benefit of the listener. And hopefully you'll take this wonderful information and use it as a seed thought, perhaps, to investigate further. But always from a discerning point. You must always use your brain. Be discerning, but always open your heart to sense and to feel and to know if the information you're getting is viable and credible. And then check, research yourself, but be led and be guided. Now, when I mentioned earlier about the guides or guardian angels, it's extremely important to understand it is not grandma and grandpa passed over or a highly evolved soul. Actually, it is a highly evolved soul that has completed Earth School 101. They've graduated. And you get to pick when you have put your application in to become back to Earth School again, to become born again. No, it wasn't a religion. It's literally you asking to come back from the divine hierarchy so you can complete your work, your projects, your greater soul growth, and remember to leave the world better than when you came. So it's essential that you try to understand yourself. And also in this process that you are a spiritual material being, not just material being. Now, as I said, everything underneath has an idea or a process that's always spiritual. And so today we're going to talk about beyond the headlines. Now, this is essential because you have to understand what's going on in the world, because all these processes happen from the smallest event in your life to the greater events in the world. And for today, we see the discord in the Middle East happening. Egypt started it with their wonderful, brilliant protest to oust their leader, Mubarak, for several years. And now we see the same thing going and matriculating and moving throughout the Middle East, because the people have been suppressed for a lot longer than the rest of the world has. So they have to catch up to the rest of the world's dynamic. So spiritually happening for the entire planet right now is this evolutionary, energetic field that is coming through. So you'll find you're more aware, you're more in tune, you'll have more hunches that are happening. But the Middle East is now happening or trying to understand their abilities or to connect with us on the level we are, because they're about 100 years behind. So we all, as a human race, have to elevate at this time to bring this evolutionary phase for all humankind into being for the whole planet. You see, we are all interconnected and always have been. Those are your brothers and sisters. We all are connected to the divine, God Creator, throughout the entire cosmos. So it's essential, as we watch our brothers and sisters in the Middle East try to grasp and grow, and you notice it's the younger population, because you see the older population has been used to this suppression, and the younger population is sensing there's something unjust, unfair. And so they are prompting this and helping everybody to see we all have to come on board as a human consciousness for the earth to grow at this time. So as you watch, you'll see that the old guard has a hard time releasing their power. And that's anywhere in the world, not just the Middle East, anywhere in the world. But we want to hope for our brothers and sisters that they all do it in the highest consciousness, in the highest and best ways. So, in the most divine level, since those really are your brothers and sisters in humankind, in the highest level, through God Creator, you should be hoping to give your prayers, your meditation, your focuses in the highest way to the benefit of the Middle East, because what happens there will affect you here. So it's important to you to understand there's more to life than news, weather, and sports. There is always a spiritual, metaphysical focus to everything we see, everything we do, everything we are, every single minute and moment of every day of our lives. It's essential that this deeper grasp of just who you are is finally taken in your own right time, in your own right development. So in this process, as you go through the news, you must remember, be discerning about what comes across on the broadcast. Be aware, not to be slanted, but listen to your heart and soul, not your head, and not the consensus or what everybody else says or thinks. We'll be back in just a moment. And we're here again for Beyond the Headlines. And this portion is to help the audience to understand that everything has a spiritual, metaphysical purpose, mental, physical, spiritual, always three things working on a three-dimensional world. And of course, we've heard in the headlines about the Japanese earthquake. But I believe all of us that have seen those newsreels, those videos, are surprised at the courage and the continence of the Japanese culture. This was a horrific cataclysm that happens on the earth. And we've seen now those kind of cataclysms happening around the corner in New Zealand. We've seen it happen in Chile, in Sumatra, all the way back. But this is really close to our watching. How can I say it? In these events as we go through, so we can feel what the Japanese culture is doing. In the United States, we may not have the same continence, if you notice. You see the grocers were giving 5 items of food to each person in line that waited patiently in line. And if you recall, in 1994 earthquake in California, they decided to loot the grocery stores. So there's a different continence. So as we watch our brothers and sisters, remember we're all connected, into Japan going through these crises, we are able to learn, A, to be more caring, more compassionate to what their plight that they're going through, and how we can perceive and send giving thoughts to them. So when we watch them go through this, our whole point is it's part of our planet. It's part of our earth. Therefore, it affects us. What happens to them on that side, as you've seen, affects us with the radiation, that sort of thing. So it's important that you give your care and compassion, no matter what your thought is about the people. Remember, therefore the grace of God, so to speak, go I. So it's important for you to learn in this essence of this great example of giant cataclysm, that you need to be more caring. So just your intention, which means just your thought of wishing them well, of wishing them peace, of wishing them recovery. Do you understand? It doesn't just happen to Japan. It comes in your own life. What you give out to others, what you say, what you think. Unfortunately, the law of the cosmos, universal law, divine law from God Creator, will happen in your own life. It will be your experience. So you have to watch what you naturally think and say. So no matter what your differences are, yes, it's another country, but it's part of your earth brother and sisters. So what your intention should be, and you have free will to decide that or not, is to extend that care, whether it's meditation, prayer, just your light thought. And there was a large consensus through the internet, which we all use, that stated we should pray at a certain time. The Dr. Imaro Emoto asked that everybody have this prayer because the water and the tsunami made this ravaging effort, and he's an expert on the energies that are found when we send a certain intention through water. So he knows, as a scientist, that everything on the planet, as I say again, is affected spiritually, physically, and mentally. So everything. So that mere thought in your own home or at your own workplace, do you understand it affects them in a positive manner? And the payback for that, and you're not looking for payback, in your own life, you'll get it back 10 times greater in areas that are important in your own life, be it personal or business or career. So as we see these examples in Japan, we'll learn what not to do. We will learn how best to handle circumstances or giant cataclysms when they happen in our own sector. Just because it's not in our backyard doesn't mean we have to turn our heads and not pay attention, as if it isn't affecting us. Because you see the radioactivity from the Fukushima plant is now affecting the West Coast, and it will affect the country, U.S., all the way across the world. So you notice in the West Coast we had lots of particles of going through the air from the radiation. What comes down is a lot of rain, and everybody thought that that's good, but it goes in our water tables. It goes in our food tables. It goes in our concentration of foods that will grow. So you see, it does affect us. Just because it was over there doesn't mean it's not affecting you right here. So as you learn and understand we're all interconnected, you will learn and understand we're connected throughout the entire cosmos. And I like to use this example. If you take a pebble and throw it in a pond, it'll have those concentric circles that go on and on and on. How hard you throw that pebble, how large that pebble, or how small that pebble is how it affects you. So it's essential for you to toss that pebble and realize you're making waves somewhere in the world, not only in your own life. That would be a selfish or self-view of you only. But you see, you have to remember you're interconnected with everybody you walk by, whether you know them or not. So as we look at those brilliant examples of their countenance, they're helping one another, they're calm. It's essential that you learn and understand to do the same in perhaps situations in your own backyard. And we'll be back with more with our new guest we have coming on, Jana Zinzer. And this is important because what I read about Jana's background as a screenwriter in Colorado, she has done successful projects, but they tend to deal with social injustice. And the social injustice is extremely important for us to note. It brings to our attention what we need to do as a population to be aware. So as a group consensus, we no longer have that happen. So today, on Beyond the Here and Now, I'm happy to welcome Jana Zinzer. Thank you, Jana, for being with us. I'm glad to see you today. Jana Zinzer, who's a screenwriter that handles social injustice. In other words, through her works of screenwriting, she weaves in information that we really need to learn, and that's the purpose of media. And so what I found wonderful about Jana is the newest project she's working on is about the kinder transport. And this discusses literally the information that happened that we're not aware of, that happened with getting the children out, Jewish or Polish children out during the World War II efforts with the Nazi regime. So Jana, thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you.
So you, in your studies, how did you come to find the kinder transport information?
I actually saw a documentary on it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so interesting about the kinder transport is 6 million Jews died, but 1.5 million were children.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So in all the atrocities and darkness of that time, there was bright spots, and this is one of them.
Oh, wow.
In 1938, England,
Yes.
The Jewish leaders with the Quakers and the Christian leaders got together and decided that they would relax their immigration laws temporarily and allow in as many Jewish children as they could without their parents. They were afraid that older kids might take their jobs. So children up to the age 17 were allowed to get on trains from Czechoslovakia, Poland, Austria, and Germany and come live in England.
Wow.
So if you can imagine what the parents went through in deciding, I will put my child on a train to go to another country.
Not knowing if they would ever see them again.
Many of them knew they wouldn't or feared they wouldn't. Many of them told the children, we will follow shortly.
Oh, wow.
Really the only way that they could get the children
To go along.
to go. And many of the children that were young saw it as an adventure. You know, and the parents did, many of the parents did an excellent job of saying how great it would be in England and how wonderful, and to go on a train trip. So in December, what triggered it really was the night of broken glass, when the Germans attacked the Jewish homes and businesses. And that was when England...
Can you give us a year, please?
Yes. That was, I think, November 9th, 1938.
Okay.
Widespread destruction and intimidation of the Jewish homes and businesses. Many of the men were taken and put in concentration camps at that time. So although this discussion had been going on in England, this was the moment when they said, we've got to act now. We've got to do something. So, like I said, the Jewish, the Quakers, and the Christians together, like you were talking about, decided that something must be done. So they petitioned Parliament, and Parliament agreed. We will relax temporarily the immigration for any children that will come out on the transports. Now, Hitler at this time was saying, go, you know, you're free to go. This was before his campaign of annihilation. He was, you know, wanting people deported and out of the area. So So it was a 10-month time before Hitler invaded Poland and war broke out. The children were allowed to go to England. They lived with foster families, many of them, but England had to present, I think it was £50. They had to provide private funds to provide for the care of these children. Now, if you can imagine that today.
Yes.
So the children had to queue up in Germany at the major towns. Some had to drive many, many hours just to get on the list.
Wow. And again, how many children were handled through the kinder transport?
10,000 made it out before the war broke out.
Oh.
Now, there were a few that still got out after that.
Yes.
But basically, when the borders were sealed and the war was in full force, they could no longer bring the kids out. And that's when Hitler kind of changed his whole
mandate,
campaign.
Yes.
But if you can imagine, first of all, what the family had to go through.
Yes.
They were allowed to take 2 items with them. They had to be able to carry it.
You're saying just 2 items?
Two, like a suitcase and a knapsack, or 2, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And lots of times the mothers would make food that they would eat on the train, but they had to choose what, my favorite teddy bear, my doll, my clothes.
Right.
They made warm coats for the kids because they were going to England. But those choices, most everything was left behind. They had to choose just a very few things. So the sacrifices that they're making, not only the hugest, the parents giving their children, life, basically,
Right.
the opportunity for safety, but the children in leaving their parents, not knowing what's going on, not understanding why, always,
Right.
and then making the choices on the possessions. Sometimes they had a picture of the family, special mementos. So it was often, you're leaving next week. So not only, did they have to prepare for this, they had to prepare very quickly for their departure. The Germans kept the parents back from the platform, so the children wore numbers on cardboard pieces of paper that matched the number that was on their suitcase. So they were placed on these trains.
And I understand it was quite a distance. The parents had to stay away from the children.
They
as
did.
were leaving.
They had to say their goodbyes, sometimes even in a separate room.
Oh, well.
And the parents were trying to put on a happy face
Yes.
to get the kids to go.
Yes.
Some of the stories of the parents and the children, one story I've heard is the father puts the child on the train but cannot bear what he's just done. He leaps over and runs to the train and pulls the child through the window.
And this is human nature, okay? So we're seeing horrible events that absolutely happen throughout our history. And I'm going to just suggest that the audience realize that there's a spiritual metaphysical purpose for what you do in your work as a screenwriter. What happens is your soul would have asked to bring this kind of information, especially since you deal with social injustice, across for our benefit. Because we can't just go to work and come home. So when we go to a movie or a film or a documentary, we get to look, and through your eyes, your rich, deep perspective that you were literally guided from the divine universe for, we get this information so we can see this, so we know that A, this is unfair, that we should never let this happen in our society again. So people forget the importance of everyone that has creative talent and the purpose that they have in the world. Every time we watch a film or one of your works or pieces, it's important that you're having to glean all the information, but with the emotion. So you're tapping into your own ability to feel what those parents might have felt and the fear the children had about going to a new place. And that takes a soul that's advanced enough or aware enough in your senses, Jana, I might say, to do so, to pull that emotion so the larger body of the audience can also feel. So as a group, we learn never to let this injustice ever happen again. So there's a positive purpose. And if I could suggest, if I looked at your birth data, I would see it's a computer program of what you promised the divine God creator you're going to give this lifetime in the world, how you would choose to use your talents and abilities that your soul brought in, and this is all your free will choice, and things that you would clean up for yourself, as well as what you're giving to leave the world better. I would know that you had this proficiency for your writing and this high perspective of being able to feel the consciousness of many other people. So it's extremely important that you understand that it was a spiritual purpose that brought you here to this subject matter that finally is coming out as a film for us, or documentary?
It's a film. I tried to combine many of the stories that I heard and be represented by the different characters. But you're absolutely right, because I want to tell their story.
Yes.
I am passionate to let people see what it must have been like for them. And I've got to tell you, when I was writing it, there was a very big darkness, because I was kind of living in that place.
Yes.
Now, if there could be a darkness for me just thinking
That's correct.
about it,
Yes.
I kept thinking, what must it have been like for them
Correct.
to have lived with it?
Very nice. What ends up happening is you're doing your purpose. Now, we have free will to do it in a positive way or a negative way. And this is essential that I hope, what are you calling your piece again?
Kindertransport, the Children of the Holocaust.
Okay, so we want the audience to be alert and aware, and we'll have more information about Jana's work for the benefit for them to grow and learn and experience this, so we never have this happen on the planet again. But as my thank you and an exchange of energy, so to speak, I would like to give you an idea of what I do in a mini reading here on the air today. So, as a professional psychic, it's quite different, and as you see, it's not just card reading or fortune telling. It goes into all those processes that I said at the top. It is so much more. Remember, this is a third point of reference for me only. I use tarot, astrology, numerology, palmistry, graphology. I know all those sciences very well. However, they are half man-made, therefore flawed. So it's only a third point of reference for me. On top of being naturally psychic, clairvoyant, remember I see and hear, they will literally put me in your body, I'll see it through your eyes, but the whole governor, so to speak, or the fulcrum of this reading is through your own guide. That is where we get all this information from. And you see there's a purpose for everything I do, basically, the way they're respected. And if you'll note, Jana, for your instance here, you'll see the Hermetic cross literally on the cards themselves. They have a spiritual intention that we were not taught, most humans, because of the religious suppression. But it was always intended as a spiritual guideline or purpose. So what happens is, literally during the reading today, I will see and hear your guide, guardian angel, no kidding. They will show me things about you that they feel you need to know about yourself in the question. They're going to tell you the answer to the specific question you asked, Jana, and they'll tell you all about it. I'm only laying out the cards or tarot, astrology, numerology to confirm what they're showing and telling me. Literally, remember, this is all happening all at once. So if you will please say your name, I'm granted permission to go in, and the month and day only of your birth.
Jana Zinser, June 28th.
Okay, and your specific question today, please.
Where can I do the most good?
Okay, that's very general. So what I'd like to do at a general reading is of 1 hour for me. I'd like to do that for you, but for purposes on the air today, we're going to cover it more specifically, because that could be personal life, your career life, or how you want to process specifically your piece or your work. So do you have a more specific?
I'm thinking in terms of contributions to the world.
Okay, do you want to know if you should put more time and energy into your screenwriting to get it effectively to the public?
Yes.
And between now and the next 6 months, or now and the next 2 years, what time frame would you like?
How about within a year?
Between now and the next year, should you contribute more time and priority to your work as a screenwriter? And think it to the divine. You're not asking me and you, because you see, we're human. They do know everything. We just think we do. So we're going to address it non-verbally in your own way, in your mind, as I shuffle, as a third point of reference only, and asking them, would it be best for the greatest, highest good of your soul to put your priority and focus into the screenwriting about bringing this kind of information to the population? And please think it to the divine, uncross arms and ankles. That tends to block down the energy. We want you open. And you tell me when you'd like me to stop shuffling, please.
Okay. Stop.
Thank you. Now, normally I would ask you to give more time to the question, but you were as I was speaking, which was great. And you always ask to the divine. It has nothing to do with man's 35,000 religions, as I said earlier. It's your own personal connection to the divine. And each reader will read differently. It's not reading the name on the bottom of the card. What happens is, it is to open and focus the pineal gland with protection that I've already done for you and I, as I sit here for this reading and for the information from the highest source in the highest way. And on the pathway you're headed, you ask, should you focus that priority? And now this is important because it's given me a maybe. Now this is, it would be, but what happens with a maybe, it means you're not sure. It means your guide is sitting on your shoulder saying, well, what do you really want, Jana? Do you really want to put a priority there? Can you really afford to do that? Can you handle that? That kind of thing. It's because right now you didn't realize you're going through career karmic testing. And there's only two kinds of karma that we handle. And with career karmic testing, remember they're showing and hearing, I'm listening to the guide, and this is only a third point of reference going on. Two kinds of karma. Career is basically what you're dealing with about what to do in the area where you're weakest, where you're not strong, where you're least effective. Because your soul asked before you were born, you said, look, I got a little problem in my cycle of past lives in this area of career. I got this other stuff nailed, but I learned it in between. And they check your spiritual file to see that you have all the spiritual tools. And you said, if I get permission to go back to Earth School 101, because that's what this is, I'd like to give this at this time, give me this test. In fact, with some of the same people, under the same circumstance that I didn't do it quite well before. And I'll prove to you guys, this time I can handle it. They check your file, they go, okay, Jana, that's it. No one forces it. So it's extremely important. So it's essential on the pathway you're headed. The answer is a maybe. So I'm going to pull this up quickly because it shows me, this is my writer's card. The deck over 35 years is only for writers. So they know who you are, is what happens. This is the best card in the deck, the world or the sun, showing God and the universe literally guiding you to this information. So this is essential because it shows me here that your birthday again, month and day?
June 28th.
Yes, it shows me you have Gemini strong in that birth chart. You're right on the cusp between Gemini and Cancer. And so I know we're not just, anytime someone's born 4 to 5 days at the time we are choosing, literally what ends up happening is you get qualities of both in the birth chart. And if we pull that later off the air, we'll see it. But it shows me you're using this brilliant wisdom to get through this karmic test, but you're unsure. When you get a karmic test, literally your guide is saying, you need to turn to them. That's what the test is for. We've cut away from the divine for eons as humans. We're not just material people. We're supposed to, when we're done with our 2% of the brain, that's all we use, and we think we know everything, we're supposed to turn to our guide and say, show me what the heck I need to do. Because they do know your agenda. They know your life path. So I want you to rephrase the question. If you choose, it'll get you off the maybe, if you choose to focus as a priority, bringing your work more strongly to the population in the film format with your screenwriting, would it be best for you to do so between now and the next year? If you choose to devote your time that way. And please say stop whenever your heart says stop again.
Stop.
Now this is important, that rephrasing helps your human side, the 2% of the brain, get out of the way knowing it has choice. Okay, this is what is essential. So it still has free will choice no matter what I say. It's between you and the divine universe. They're going to ask what you did with these talents and abilities when you get back there, though. They're going to say, so Jana.
Yeah.
You go, so it's essential here. The answer is, if you choose, it is a definite yes. The goosebumps or cool chills or frisson, it's called, that you're getting, means your guide is very close. They want you to know what's just been thought about, talked about, or said. It's very important to note or to pay attention to. Not only is it a yes, I know they said you've been going through some personal struggles and really uncomfortable about what life has been giving you, the garbage, so to speak. But no more concentration on the garbage. When you have the garbage, you're supposed to focus on what you can do to make the world better. Then it pulls you out of the garbage. It shows me your attitude and approach. What I love is you have no clue right now that God in the universe is working with you. You know that poem, Footprints in the Sand? Well, literally what happens is they're carrying you right now. They're washing or cleaning off personal karmic debt. You might find that you're also being drawn to this color, the color lavender. This color helps to the seer, anybody watching or looking at it, it has a metaphysical purpose or spiritual purpose. It's not just a cute color. Everything on the planet, God and the universe intended for a spiritual, metaphysical purpose underneath. Every single thing. You're going to be literally finding yourself drawn to that violet or lavender color. It washes away personal karmic debt. They know you need all the help you can get. So what ends up happening is, I like also, it shows me that you have not just your main guide, you're bringing a bunch around and bringing these properties or these screenwriting qualities or projects up to the public. When there's a bunch, you haven't normally been listening to the main guide, so they figure if they bring a whole bunch from the cosmos, and if they all holler, Jana, literally you'll hear and then be moved to use this. The shock to me, Jana, is you're listening to their input. Sometimes your main guide will prompt a guide that has a specialty in that project you're working on, in the field, or in the writing field. And it shows me that there will be a young female that will be very instrumental in helping you, a younger child or the life of a younger child that will really stimulate you to give your best in the next year to these projects. It looks like she has Libra strong in her birth chart, highly creative herself, may blurt out things she shouldn't say from time to time, but she's a really wonderful quality here. It also shows me here on the pathway headed God and the universe's influence. If you choose this route this year to put that as a priority, you're going to be given instructional dreams. This is not just symbolic dreams. They're giving you the counts, the what you need to do, showing you who you need to deal with. Instructions, shock again, that you're listening to the input offered. It also shows me that this is important for you to see. This is literally this blockage here. This cross in the back is showing me that the cosmos divinely is trying to give you input, and all the garbage in the front is your left brain blocking it. Okay? That would be the 2% of the brain that thinks, knows everything, that gets in our way. So since that tendency is here, you would have promised divine you would work past that, because you won't be able to hear that guidance. The more fear we have, the more reserve we have, or doubt, or depression about it, what happens is we block intuition. We block what they're trying to offer or give us. It also shows me here on the pathway headed that you'll have to compromise with whoever is working with you on how the project comes out to the public. The compromise is necessary. Not exactly what you want, Jana, not exactly what they want. Below, I try to do this offside. I know you need monies, but it shows me you'll be getting or gleaning this money from the divine universe, not just from your earning it. So it's important that you allow this opportunity. And I want to thank you so very much for allowing this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, it's important that people understand when you get a reading, it's more full body. This was a mini reading. And again, Jana was allowing me this opportunity of energy exchange. And this is how it should be done on a soul level. And now we're going to cover our health segment. People fail to realize, because we're not taught, that there are spiritual, metaphysical, physical, and how can I say, mental processes to everything we do. So we're going to talk about the food you eat today. This is important because we are really busy, aren't they, out there in the world doing our thing. So we have a tendency to just pull whatever we get, whether it's been on the commercial, we run by the fast food franchise, but we were never taught that what we eat goes to the soul first, then the mind, and the body last. And it's unfortunate, but you know, what happens is when we get very busy and we're letting everybody else tell us what to do, we'll never be aware of that. So I want you to try to understand and watch what you eat by what I call conscious eating. Okay? It doesn't mean you have to eat horribly. It doesn't mean it doesn't have to taste good. It can be good for you. But it's important to understand what was intended. We're physical beings here with this spiritual container, actually this spiritual essence flowing through this particular physical container. So you have to nourish both. So it's essential to understand what happens. So if you notice, I'm going to give a good example, because some of us have a craving for sweets or foods that are for comfort foods, especially the sweets. When the body is craving sweets, it's the body's physical way of masking the craving for protein. Now, protein builds every cell throughout the entire body. And essentially, it's effective for our spiritual side as well. If you look at a cat, you put tuna in front of a cat, that cat will jump, go crazy just to get that protein, right? So it's important because we look at cats, they can see everything in the room that we don't see. And this is essential for us to understand. That's a good example of what happens to us. So when the body is craving sugar, it really wants protein. And there are several sources of protein. Chicken, fish, tuna, turkey, all green vegetables people have forgotten are protein. So it's essential on your plate, instead of all that yellow stuff and all the white stuff, to try to get more of the green essences for protein. Now this is essential because, as I said, your psychic center is increasing at this rapid rate on the planet Earth. So you're aware that there's more to you than we talked about before, news, weather, and sports. So in this process, when you eat, try to just make a healthier choice at the restaurant or a healthier choice at the grocery store. So it's essential in this lifetime for you to decide, not somebody else to decide for you. And what you'll find is when you put a food that is less processed or not in the can or not in the box, that's freshest to the way nature intended, what ends up happening, or freshly made from scratch, all the essences of all that energy that comes from the universe, from the soul, the soil, from the sun, absolutely has a spiritual metaphysical purpose on us. It gives us life force. Now, it's unfortunately most of us weren't taught about life force. But I can tell you, in the can, it died long ago. In the box, it probably never existed. So you want foods that give you chi or prana or life force, so you can nourish this container that houses your soul. You see, we have one soul that lives forever. And it's not a theory. We nicely choose these bodies when we're granted permission to come back to Earth School 101 and choose these forms, and we have to maintain this form. Because it's not cliche. This really is the temple. So if you want everything to operate harmoniously, health-wise, you have to understand it's extremely important. So you have to realize what you're putting in consciously. You know whether it's better for you or not. And just learn to make it tasty. Learn to make it fresh. And that's our health segment today. And now I want to introduce my next guest. He is Master Clark, and he has a really wonderful quality of dealing with the internal arts from all the Asian arts from all over the world, China, Korea, Singapore. He has also officially been in our U.S. Games and won gold medals in his expertise in martial arts, as well as he's worked as a motivational speaker and is a Tai Chi master and has trained with the renowned masters around the world. It is my pleasure to bring to us Master Clark. Now, Master Clark, I only covered just a small portion of your background because you've taken that quality of your internal arts, of all the Chinese mastering all those arts, and you've been in lots of films as well.
Yes, I have. And what I'm doing, he was talking about the internal arts, talking about pretty much the quality of life.
Quality of life.
Okay, so we was talking about like what's popular today in America is something called Qigong, which is saying life force. All right?
Yes.
Life force, vital exercise is what it's really saying, that we want to work on our heart, liver, kidney, spleen, and our lungs. This is good health when we're working on the internal aspects. A lot of people in this country work on muscular tone
Yes.
and outward appearance.
Exactly.
To make a car run better, we have to make sure that that engine and the different things under the hood works well.
Exactly. It's interesting because my health segment was about what we put in the body.
Exactly.
Be conscious about that. So can you tell us, with your work with the Qigong, because people in the United States aren't familiar with the term, and so I talked or alluded to Qi being in our food or life force.
Exactly.
And so it's absolutely an energy that is infinitesimal for our being. We need it, but we don't see it. So I want people to recognize and to realize that it's essential, that you don't see oxygen either, but if I hold your nose, Master Clark, in 10 minutes, you'll be upset.
I'll be out of breath.
So more that comes through, we don't see oxygen going up the nose into the brain and into our bodies, but it is essential and we need it. So you're saying that your internal arts show how to keep this energy that is unseen flowing throughout the body, is that correct?
Right, so it's going to be through the practice of breath, like you just was saying. That is, the Qi is actually internal, it's actually just breath. Life force is air. Without the air, and you said it well, all right, you cannot live without it, okay?
Exactly.
Every living organ or every living entity on the earth has Qi. Anything that's living has Qi, and Qi is the force, and that's the name. But I stayed away from saying names like Qi because people, when they hear something like that, they assume that they don't have it.
Ah, I see.
Okay, so when I say life force, everybody's like, well, I have life force. You know, they're able to say they have the life force. So I like to keep it really simple to explain to people that it's the breath of life
Yes.
that you want to really achieve.
And we just said the breath of life. That first breath a newborn takes after gestation for 9 months, 260 days, what ends up happening is that breath of life back in earth absolutely connects the soul, which is now connected to the body, and it opens to what I call Earth School 101 in this experience. But you teach us how to not just be in our chairs and in our bodies, you teach us how to apparently actively use that force or life force. Is that correct?
We're going to use the force, and what I'm actually doing is actually sharing information that it was shared with me.
Exactly.
It was passed down. Okay, we live in this country. A lot of these philosophies are coming from the East,
Yes.
but it's coming from the planet Earth.
Correct.
Okay, so when you walk east long enough, you end up where? In the West. Okay, if you walk, so it really is how you think about it, that we live on this planet, and the information that comes up through different people may come and bring that information to light.
Correct.
But it's shared with everyone on the earth. So looking at the breath of life and what it means to us and how we want to get people to become more conscious
Yes.
of the breath of life is to simply say, inhale, and understand, long as you can do that, you have really no problems. You have a source to a solution.
Now, it's interesting because as a professional psychic, one of the modalities I have to use, and that's just my makeup, is I have to have this breathing before it starts a long reading. I make sure that it prepares us, and that breath is breath of life, but I have the client take that breath in very deeply down to the abdomen, because as humans, we tend to breathe just the chest breath, which isn't enough. It doesn't go throughout the extremities.
Exactly.
And there's something that happens that absolutely brings their consciousness higher. So I have them take these 3 breaths before a long reading, believe it or not. And we're in sync in that energy. So that life force is essential for me to do a reading. I usually, for a full reading, I execute that connection to their own life force is what's happening. And then we're divinely connected to the guides in the cosmos. But this is part of being an earth being, and we all are. So by them learning what you, or the principles that you share, and what we're doing is we're all sharing information for the benefit of us all.
Exactly, and that's what it is. And when you was talking about the breath, that people do take the breath, when we were living on the moon, everything goes top to bottom. Okay, so, but on the earth, everything goes from bottom to top.
Yes.
So when a person takes that breath, if they put their hand down by their navel in that area, some people will call the dantian, but we'll call it just below the navel. Put your hand there and take that breath through your nose to that, and make sure it goes down, and then they can get proper breathing. And when we bring in more oxygen into the body, it gives us more clarity. And think about it, if breath is life, the more breath you bring into your body is the more life you're going to have.
I always joke and say the person, when they just, the little shallow, it's like a cigarette breath, you know?
Exactly.
It's a short breath. But this deeper breath extending throughout the extremities, and masters that you've studied with, renowned masters, and now you share that information for all of us. If we learn that deeper breath, it's essential. Now, it's interesting, especially in the world today, our environment, the air, the sky, is challenged. And unfortunately, we didn't know better. It's challenged because of the way we've treated it.
Well, we have treated it, and we were talking about that, and the fact that the way the world is treated and how it's going to affect us, and what our job is on this earth. I always look at us as supposed to be something like farmers. That is our job, to make sure that the toxins and the different things that can harm us as the people that live on the earth, and I think we have to do a better job with that mission.
But this life force, if we take it deeply, tends to offset those environmental stresses.
Definitely, and stress, as you know, is the cause of most illnesses.
Every disease.
And everything you can put caused by stress, if we can somehow relieve the stress in people by getting them to learn to appreciate the breath of life. Now, you're a psychic, everybody will call you up, oh, am I going to be rich? I'm going to get a new car, I'm going to get a new house. They never just think about the breath of life. Will I be able to breathe for a while?
Now, what ends up happening with my clientele, I got to tell you, I ask God and the universe to guide those souls to the table, so I get a different kind of clientele. What ends up happening is my reading doesn't talk about, well, it does.
Prosperity.
But it talks about how they can align their soul to the divine to get those things to achieve their highest life purposes. And they call me a teaching psychic. So it's quite different from the average storefront reader. So if they're guided to the table, I know that the divine universe has offered information that they heard and are coming to the table for. So it's quite deep, so they stay with me and they gain in their spiritual evolution and consciousness. So I would be talking to them about life force. I would be talking, if the guide brought it up for their benefit. So they get that kind of deep discourse in that information as well. So again, it's not like storefront gypsy, thank goodness, but it's a deepening, because with this kind of knowledge, they can now transcend, achieve their highest potentials, transcend that instead of underachieving as we have for eons. So that's the old description, and many psychics will do it that way. As a professional that's in tune with and on evolutionary journey, they get a whole different reading from me that changes their whole life for the better if they choose to use that information.
And that's, well, that's something else, because you were saying earlier, I heard what you said, something about the intake of food, nutrition.
Correct.
Okay, we talk about, and some of the things I share is
Yes.
about 3 essentials.
Yes.
The 3 essentials: proper rest, good nutrition, and this is the one that people need to really listen to: exercise as a habit.
Correct.
The habit of exercise. Now, I don't know you, but I know since I last seen you that you ate something and you also rested. But I don't know if you actually had time to exercise.
Right.
So the thing is, if that should be something that's a common occurrence
Correct.
in our lives, and not a chore like,
Correct.
oh my God, we have 168 hours in a week,
Correct.
in 7 days, and most people work 52 of those hours, and they sleep for 52 of those hours, because most people, the average American, sleeps 8 hours a day. So they're sleeping for a long period of time, and then when you ask a person, how much do you work out? They'll say, oh, well, 2 times a week for an hour. And then when you think about the average American, how much they eat, 3 times a day at the end of a week.
Correct.
That's 21 hours, and when you add the snacks, it would do the same.
Now, what's interesting is I have a background of fitness. I was a champion bodybuilder, as well, female bodybuilder in the healthiest, natural way. But also I had my own company called Ultra Body, and I taught them the balance of mind, body, and soul, being physically fit. So I'll do a yoga issue each and every day, or I'll do anything with resistance or weights, as well as all kinds of training. So I believe we have to maintain a balanced mind, body, and soul. To be doing my best as a reader, I have to keep all those 3 things in balance: mind, body, soul. So thank you for bringing that into our, like I said, awareness. Now, it's important right now. I'd like to share with you opportunity for a reading. Now, this is essential because we have to exchange this energy, and I thank you for
Okay.
allowing me this chance.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you a specific question as I take out the tarot here, and basically this is only a 3rd point of reference only. I really see and hear your guide, guardian angel. They'll show me about the answer to the question and all about how it's going to affect your life. I'll confirm everything I'm picking up with tarot, astrology, numerology. Your question is?
My question is that this work that I want to share,
Yes.
I want to know possibly a path where I be able to reach people on a long period of time. And I guess what I'm asking, how long do you think I may have to do this mission?
Oh, that's very good. So do you want to know if you have another 10 years to do this mission?
I want to
Another
know
50?
if I have, I would like it to be a life.
Let's ask, would it be
Yes.
best for you to pursue this as your mission for the
I
rest
would
of your
like
life?
it to be something I feel is healthy for me to help
Okay.
humankind.
Let's ask, if you continue along this path, is it best for the greatest, highest good of your soul to do this as your priority, as your mission in life? Uncross arms and ankles, that tends to block the energy.
Okay.
You're not asking me. With love and respect, Master Clark, you're addressing it in your own way to the divine, God, the universe, your guide. Please say stop shuffling when you're ready for me to stop. Think it to them, not me or you. We're just human. Say stop whenever your heart says.
With a smile, stop.
Thank you. All right, remember, they control what goes on here. These are just a conduit. It's 3rd point, man-made, but I hear and see what they're saying. They're going to show me the answer to your specific question that you ask, and I have a certain way that I do this to lay them out. And each reader is quite different, but they're talking and showing me what happens to you. So anything you hear me say or describe, they've mentioned for me to tell you. So I'm just the good message bearer, so to speak. On the pathway you're headed, Master Clark, the answer is yes. It shows me it is best. It is your mission. This, for me, would be the card with your guide saying it, as well as the goosebumps and chills you're starting to get. That means your guide wants you to know it's just been thought about, talked about, or said. It's very important to know, to pay attention to. It shows me you knew this was your life work and your life mission. They're showing me past life when you didn't quite get to that point, okay? And we won't talk about that. We'll go in later detail at another time. But it shows me on the pathway you're headed, your attitude and approach. You're wondering, should I end this? Should I continue? Is it necessary? Should I go into something else? And it is definitely not going to end. It will change. Your fear is, will it end because of the circumstances in the world and what's going on? But no, it will change. You're getting ready to go through a new juncture or path in your life, and the way you take this out to the public. It also shows me your attitude or approach. You have to make compromise. The trick is to make compromise. You may want to do a certain way. Someone else will suggest perhaps it should be this way. By taking the compromise, you'll get to, they say, effectively meet more people. It shows me the monies, if you do so, make these compromises, monies will be given to you from the divine universes where we get the best money, to give it out there so you're proficiently able to live effectively and then still continue your work. God and the universe's influence on this particular question is showing me that there's a tendency, interesting, this is human nature, and you'll see here there's basically the cross here behind showing divine cosmic energy or information coming to you, but this garbage in the front would be your left brain. The 2% of the brain we as humans tend to use often, and it tends to block divine information. So I want to suggest that you keep open spiritually as you do physically as well as mentally, to keep open to their information that they're going to be giving you between now and the next 2 to 3 months. They say the month of March is when you started to realize that I want these changes to happen. They said by next May you'll have an idea of where you need to put these things essentially. It shows me this card for success here. It says that, but it's not just success that way we think. It's satisfaction with what you're giving the world, and literally the satisfaction of the monetary basis you're making. That's true success, not just monetary. It shows me on the path that you're headed, this will lead you to the opportunity for fulfillment and happiness in your life. Right now you're putting the work out. It will return to you back tenfold. It shows me by doing your task, you have a love for mankind and humanity that's going to come to the forefront past your technical skill. It's the love that they'll sense or see first that opens their hearts to you and the information you have to impart or share. It also shows me on the pathway you're headed, it shows that you're opening also literally to the divine input. A little tendency for self-sabotage and just stopping or procrastination. You want to stop that.
I like that.
And I want to thank you very, very much for allowing me the opportunity to exchange our energy and literally this information.
I'd like to thank you for offering me and giving me this information to carry with me.
Thank you very much. Much success in all that you do.
All right, thank you very much.
And we're here with our email segment. And what's interesting is I have received an email from Leslie. And the synopsis is basically that she had an experience where all of a sudden a friend's father who had died several years ago came to her and was talking and telling Leslie to tell his daughter that everything was fine. She was shocked. Her husband saw her lips moving and that she was talking to someone, and she became pale. Well, her question to me is, why did this happen with a friend's father and not her own family? She's tried to contact them. And she says, and why can't I talk to people on the other side when I want to? Well, that's beautiful, and that she had this wonderful experience, and that the friend's father came to tell her. Basically, the friend's father, who passed on several years ago, knows that she was probably receptive on a spiritual level. That was good. Or her evolutionary level to perceive his presence was good. And normally loved ones and friends visit on the left side after 2 years of passing, and they'll come as close as you want or not. But it is their free will choice to visit or not the opposite way, not when we want to talk to them. Now, it's important, if you'd like to, with a loved one or friend, when they are ready, because they're busy, there's people to see, there's things that they're doing when we go home where we really live. Everyone comes to Earth School 101. It feels like 90 years. It's about 2 minutes long. Then we all go home to the astro, it's called, and literally we take more classes, we assess our lives and what we're doing here for our evolutionary growth that continues still on toward God Creator. So what you have to do is raise your spiritual awareness, and that means your intention, preparing yourself by breathing, having a conscious connection about how much you love God and the divine universe usually raises it very quickly. Just saying, I love you, God, as simply as that, will raise your vibratory rate. You may ask if the person would like to visit you, and they will always visit on that left side. They'll come as close as you want without scaring you, if that is what you'd like. But we have to understand there's more than just our loved ones that passed on. So sometimes we get hung up on just someone that has passed on. We have to live our life, and I suggest, Leslie, not just connecting to your loved ones, because they're just a little more knowledge than you, because they were just here. I'd like you to connect to your own guide, your own guardian angel. They're always on the right side of you or directly behind you. They do know everything. They know your agenda, and they love you more than anyone ever will, and they'll help facilitate when your loved ones want to visit. More on my website at www.inthesecretgarden.com, and you're welcome to take a look at a process for developing your own psychic ability in the most positive way. And I have another email here from Edward, who says, there are so many fake psychics out there. How can we tell if one is real and not phony? I'm going to suggest it's important that you use a referral system. Ask to be referred, perhaps that a friend that knows one that is exceptional or that has been credible for them. Do not go to Storefront Gypsy, neon sign, red palm. That's a gimmick and it's a business. They might have 2 minutes of brilliant psychic information, but you're walking away with a lot less or lighter in your wallet. So it's essential you understand that. Now this is, I want to thank you for being today, the wonderful emails that you sent, but this is something for us to understand. We must continually grow. You don't just stop with intellectual growth. You must continue to raise your spiritual awareness to match your high intelligence and your physicality to match that. This is Beyond the Here and Now, and I want to wish the audience all the best.